welcome our guest speaker, Michael Parks.
Thank you everybody. Thank you for that warm welcome. So what are we here to talk about today? In times like these, or any other, when life stresses get too much, when it seems like our own fate is out of our own hands, perhaps our work is overwhelming or unfulfilling, or maybe we just can't take it anymore. How do we keep life simple in spite of all the challenges and stresses that we face, no matter what they are? And I think you would all agree, we did not need a pandemic to have challenges and stresses in our lives. Well, it turns out, back when we were kids, back when we thought we knew it all, that we actually knew more than we did. You see, when we were kids, we saw the world in much simpler terms. We were not yet jaded by the stresses of adulthood. And perhaps our view of the world was so limited that we lived a life of naive bliss. But in any case, the way we used to see the world as kids, while simplistic, holds the secret to keeping life and its challenges simple and in perspective so they don't overtake us. Consider just this one. Shortcuts aren't always. You know, we see people taking shortcuts all the time, whether it's cutting you off in traffic, that person who parks in the handicapped space and then runs inside the store, or that person in zone 71 that gets up and crowds the gate when zone 1 is called to board the plane. If there is something in our lives that we're not giving the proper attention to or not giving our all, we're actually hurting ourselves. The results will never be what we want or need them to be. So the lesson for life is this: don't shortcut yourself. Sometimes it's smart to be scared. You know, the lesson for life here is that sometimes we do face situations that are scary or uncomfortable or give us some level of anxiety. But that's no reason not to tackle it, to try it, or embrace it. You know, public speaking is a good example. Experts say 73% of people have a fear of public speaking. If that's true, a whole lot of people are doing it scared. You know, it's okay to do things that give us some level of fear or anxiety. It's better than missing out on a relationship, an opportunity, or promotion, or anything. And one thing to keep in mind is fear and anxiety only exist in the future. Once we've gotten past the thing that we have that fear or anxiety about, it disappears. So if you're facing such a situation, keep that in mind. And also, there's a great book out there called Doing It Scared by Ruth Sokup. Pick up her book. It's a good read. Be early if you're the bird, and late if you're the worm. This kind of relates to what we just talked about, but seems to take both sides. I'm not really sure how to interpret it. I guess the best way is don't be the worm. You know, I've always believed that being early is on time is late, and if you're late, don't bother showing up. Now, you might escape the bird, but what else will you miss? Who cares what happened last week? Well, you know, this casual, easygoing attitude seems to be lost early into adulthood. Too many people carry grudges or hold on to negative energy, sometimes for years. But remember, as kids, we used to get over grudges, being mad or upset in relatively short order. Now, perhaps we were too busy playing or growing and moving forward to waste time on things from our past that made us feel bad or drug us down. If you have one of these situations in your life today, remember this wisdom from your youth and let it go. Trust people. Oh, easier said than done as an adult, right? You know, in today's world, it seems like trusting others is so hard to do. Are they on your side? Do they care about what you care about? Do they care what happens to you? Do they have COVID? Does their self-interest conflict with what you want or need? What happens when trusting people is our default? And what happens when not trusting people is our default? Sure, you will never get burned if you don't trust people until they earn it. But how many great relationships might you miss by not trusting first? All people look silly when they yawn. You know, the lesson for life is this: don't get caught up in your title, your stature in life, your cars, or whatever you have that you think makes you better than everyone else. It's not true. You know, you might have something better, income, car, house, but in the end, we're all the same. And this reminds me of a story I heard early on in my life that had a profound and positive impact on me, and I hope it has the same type of impact on you. I may not remember every detail, but I remember the point of the story that we should all understand and remember. Anyway, there's a large pileup on a freeway somewhere, big explosion, and several people died. 2 were severely burned, over 90% of their body. Now, these 2 strangers were flown to the nearest critical care burn center, which I think is in Atlanta, but I'm not sure if that was important. In any event, both went through hours of surgery. One lost some toes, one lost some fingers. Both lost their earlobes, but they both kept their lives. They were then placed in the burn center ICU about 8 feet apart. And for weeks they existed in a state of medically induced coma. Slowly waking from their comas, each could sense the other was there. Now, due to intubation, they could not speak and they could not move. It was mostly just because medical teams were moving back and forth. But days later, one of them made somewhat of a grunt. It's hard to grunt with an intubation tube, but they made a sound. Ooh. And the other returned the sound. And that began a bond between these 2 that would never be broken. Now, weeks later, when they were able to sit up in bed and see each other, they saw they had a twin. They were both wrapped in bandages head to feet. Now, each day, one would be taken away into a special room for their bandages to be removed, cleaned, and put back on. And the other would cry as their friend was taken away, and in part knowing they would be next. They endured through this excruciating treatment for several months, not able to visit their family due to infection. A phone call here and there, but that was about it. When their speech returned, their voices were not their own, damaged. And it pained them to talk, but they longed for speech so much they endured. And they shared their stories with each other. Each was married for about 24-25 years. One had 3 kids, the other had 2. One was a truck driver. It was his truck that exploded on the freeway. And the other was so proud to be the first person in his family to go to college, and he was returning home to Birmingham to become a 5th grade teacher. Well, fast forward, and they're both being discharged on the same day. Now, the bond between these 2 by this time was extremely solid. They were more than friends now. They were survivors. And they were, for the other, the only person in the world who would understand what they were going through. Now, due to infection control again, the families had to wait downstairs, so the nurses rolled them out in their wheelchairs, literally side by side. They were so excited, in spite of all the pain they had endured and would continue to going through. The chance to see their families and go home made them feel like kids at Christmas time. So they came around the final corner to see both families standing there, one white and one black. You see, one of these gentlemen was the leader of the Ku Klux Klan, and the other was somebody he would never be friends with. This lesson for life was learned by them the hard way through a lot of pain. The lesson for life is this, is to always treat everyone as an equal. In the end, when everything is stripped away, none of the things that we hold on to that make us feel better than someone else will matter. And every minute that we lose thinking that it doesn't will bring challenges and stress to your life. Remember this wisdom from your youth. It's too bad we lost it. We all look silly when we yawn. All right, let's look at a few more examples of wisdom from your youth. So, did you notice anything that you said as a kid? All of these things were things we used to say as kids, or kids still say today. A lot of times we don't listen to kids. Perhaps that's a good idea. But let's look at a few more wisdoms of our youth to see if perhaps we should listen a little bit more. You can't ask to start over. It would be nice if you could. The lesson for life is this: if we don't give 100%, you'll most likely will find yourself falling behind. You might be losing chances at a promotion or failing to hit your sales number or other work-related goal. If you wait too long and you fall behind, you might find yourself feeling like a do-over would be great. But in life, there aren't any. So the lesson for life is play hard at every game you play, whether it's at work or in your life. Make sure you always know where the bathroom is. I probably should have started that when we started the speech. For all of you here, it's right out those doors in the back and to the right. Some weeks you really need a Saturday on a Wednesday. This is genius coming from kids who most of the time don't even know what day it is. In adult life, though, it's usually work-related that makes us feel this way. We're overworked, we're having trouble with the boss, we're bored out of our minds. And since we can't ask to take a do-over, what is the point of this life lesson? To me, it's all about the major message behind the wisdom of our youth. Only we can control how we perceive anything. If you need a Saturday on a Wednesday, take the attitude it's Saturday. It'll be a great Wednesday. Just do your best. We've heard this a lot, right, throughout life, right? But doing your best to me is not just meeting your objectives, it's exceeding them. But it's also in how you do it. Whenever we see people doing their best, it usually first shows up in their attitude. Now, the simple, easy example is fast food. You walk into one and they're so friendly. You walk into the next one and the person behind the counter stares at you, waiting for you to start the conversation. Now, both people got the order, both people put in the register, and both gave the customer a finished order on a tray. But which one did their best? This kind of reminds me of a story of my own son. At an early age, he learned to love video games. But every time he would get a new one, if he could not master the game in short order, he would become frustrated. And on such occasion, I watched from another room as he was playing this game. And in the middle of the game, he threw down the controller and sighed in heavy frustration. I entered the room and asked him what was wrong. And he said the game was too hard, that it's impossible. I asked him if he did his best, and he claimed that he had. And that's when I gently told him, "This time, son, you did not do your best because you did not ask anybody for help." With that, I picked up the game controller and pretended to know how to play that game. But the life lesson is this: sometimes doing your best is relying on others to help you. You control your attitude, sure, but sometimes you need help with the task at hand. And it's okay to ask for help sometimes, so you can do your best. Dirt is only considered bad when it's not on the ground. Can you imagine if it was okay to show up with work with green stains on your knees or dusty hair from rolling around on the ground? If we did not have to care about our appearance like society makes us do, how much money would we save on shampoos, soaps, makeups, lotions, and potions? This one is better left to childhood. Don't show up for work dirty. Count the money in your piggy bank once a week. I guess we could change this to watch your 401k every week, but sometimes that's not such a happy feeling. The lesson for life from this wisdom could be interpreted as doing a self-inventory every week. Are we doing the right things to get what we want or need? Are we applying ourselves? Are we growing? Are we building the future we want? Or are we stuck in a rut, just expecting mediocrity in whatever we are doing? It's making sure we are not in a rut that this lesson for life is about. If we're not putting enough into the piggy bank, meaning ourselves, we need to double down and get more pennies. Now let's enjoy a few more wisdoms from your youth. That is a good one. I hope you're all starting to see how much of a genius you were when you were kids. You had the ability to see things clearly for what they were and keep a simple perspective. So, does anybody in the audience have a current situation or challenge where you think the wisdom of your youth might be handy to apply it to? Go ahead.
I find it hard to get noticed for what I'm doing at work, and it's frustrating.
All right, let's try this one. If it's in your way, climb over it. Now, before I get into that, this could be one of 2 or 3 different situations. It could mean that you're intentionally being overlooked, somebody's squeezing you out. Is it that? Good. It also could mean that others around you are just doing a better job of making themselves visible and their work visible. Could it be a little bit of that? Okay. Well, the lesson for life from this wisdom is this. Sometimes we do have to crawl over obstacles in our work life. In this case, it might be a perception obstacle. Now, obviously, how you would do this in your particular situation is only known to you, but it does remind me of a coworker that had a very similar frustration. Every week, he would come to me lamenting how this person or that person was getting more attention, invited to more meetings, and more of the choice projects. But one thing I noticed about him is he never asked his boss for the same thing. The other person simply had. He was the obstacle for himself. He was not willing to put himself out there, to take the risk, to be bold. Now, since I don't have particulars of your situation, all I can say, as a kid, you probably would have just crawled over what was in your way to get what you wanted. So remember this wisdom from your youth and do the same thing. Anybody else? Please.
Well, with the whole COVID pandemic, what's really bothering me is how disconnected society is becoming. We were already becoming disconnected with social media and buried in our phones. How do we not become so, distant from each other?
Wow, that is a big question. Anybody else feeling this way? Yeah. I think there are 2 that might apply. Let's try this one first. Look both ways. Now first, I agree this is a major challenge. 25 years ago, parents were lamenting and harping on their kids to look up from their game devices. And those same parents are now locked down into their smartphones. A positive human-to-human connection always should start with me, with you. So the lesson for life is to look up, look both ways. Even 6 feet away, we can have a conversation and start new connections. But somebody has to start. Unhappy with the way the world's becoming so disconnected? Do something. Now the other one I think would apply here is this one. Giggle. Think about the best time you've had with your family, friends, and coworkers. It's the happiness that comes from these connections that mean the most. Now we're in a very serious situation right now. Remember to giggle, to have fun, to laugh, and don't let the stress of COVID-19 or anything else take away your giggle. Let's talk about this one. Crawling still gets you there. Perspective, right? In today's world, it's all about speed. Same-day delivery, turbo fast cooker thingies. Alexa, do this for me. The world is spinning faster and expectations right along with it. It might be hard to remember sometimes that crawling still gets you there. The learning from this wisdom of youth is that when the speed of something becomes overwhelming, it's okay to pause, to take a breath. And remember that crawling still gets you there. Now to be clear, not everything in your work can be accomplished by crawling. You can be anything you want to be when you grow up. This is my personal favorite. Why? Because I believe we never stop growing. Now this is not about your physical stature. Medical experts say that we stop growing in our teenage years. Our skeleton stops. But if that was all it was about, we'd all be in trouble. And it's not about maturity either, because some people don't grow up in that regard either. To me, this is keeping in mind that we always need to be learning something new, to keep asking questions, to keep trying new things. When we stay young and we view the world with positivity, there's no end date in growing up. Well, there is, but we didn't talk about that. Okay, a pencil without an eraser might as well be a pen. Think about how far the world has come. Who even uses a pencil anymore? Remember that great invention that most young people today don't even know what it's called? Whiteout? We use computers and smartphones. Boy, they can use a whiteout on those things. Sometimes I swear my phone writes things I didn't write. Anyway, I think the lesson for life might be this. You, without an eraser, might as well be a pen. And what I mean by that is if you're stuck in a comfort zone, if you're only getting minimum satisfaction from what you're doing, if you're not growing in your job or your relationships or your career, and you know deep down you're not doing the best for yourself, get that eraser out and make a change. Because if you don't, you might as well be a pen, whatever that means. Don't let anybody pop your bubble. As adults, you tell me, do you protect your bubble like you did when you were a kid? Or do we let others trample on our bubbles, control our emotions? hold our futures in their hands? Do we let others dictate our attitudes? That's the big lesson for life from this wisdom. You know, we can debate this later, but I believe a positive frame of mind is the only way to go through life. When others pop our bubbles, we tend to be the only one who feels bad about it. The person who popped the bubble is happily on the way to pop somebody else's. The moments that we give to negative energy from that only gives them more power. So protect your bubble, your positive attitude. And if somebody pops it, blow another one. All right, let's take a look at just a few more wisdoms of your youth. Another good one. I would like to thank all of you for being here today, and I would like to leave you with 3 big positive wisdoms from your youth that you can still use today. Even Superman tries to fly higher and faster. You know, it's okay if you do the same thing every day. Don't just go to work and repeat what you did yesterday. And I'm not talking about the task. Sometimes that is programmed to be the same every day. But try to do it better or faster. You see, always trying to be better keeps us from stagnating. And who here wants to be stagnant? My next one is to dream. You know, dreams give us direction and a hope for a better tomorrow. Unless you're dreaming of singing like Mariah Carey and you can't really hold a tune, dreaming can be a tool to improve our lives, our work, and our relationships. They give us something to focus on and work towards. Now the key is to act on our dreams and make them real. And the last one I'd like to leave with you today is to sign your name big. To me, this is about owning who you are, being proud of who you are and what you do. The world should not control this. Only you should. You are who you are. Build that brand and sign your name big. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.